I've had this Nintendo Switch for about a week now, and I'm not too happy with the design of it. In my opinion, the red, blue and black just look kind of basic, so today I'm going to swap the shells out with something a little bit more interesting. The guys over at Extreme Rate sent me some products to try out, and they even included some screen protectors too. The main part I'm interested in today is their soft touch Joycon shells. In this package we're also given a nice backplate for the console. This particular shell is the SFC SNES Classic version. They also include a screwdriver, which is surprisingly good quality. They also include the screw bits and some extra screws from the console, just in case you lose any during the process. Then we have these nice custom coloured buttons for the Joy-Cons. 2 vents for the backplate. And of course the left and right Joy-Con shells. We're going to start by installing the backplate to the console. We first start by removing the 4 screws on the back of the console. Then we switch over to the Phillips head driver and remove the screws on the top, bottom and side of the console. Making sure to scratch the brand new console first. There is then one more screw underneath the kickstand. After all of those are removed, we can then begin to pry off the back cover to reveal the metal shield. We then need to remove the old kickstand assembly and transfer it to the new shell. This also needs to be done for the cartridge slot. The black hinge then needs to be transferred to the new kickstand. Then we simply add the screws back into the new shell. We then need to add the adhesive vents back onto the back shell. This prevents any grime and dust from entering into the console. We can then reinsert the game cartridge slot. We also need to add these little mesh pieces to the backplate. I'm not sure exactly what they do, but they're on the original and I assume they're there for a reason, so let's add them to the new shell. With the backplate fully rebuilt, we can now add it onto the console. Then we simply insert all of the screws back into the console. And there we have it, our fully modified backplate. Now onto the Joycons. Let's start with the right one. There are 5 tri-wing screws on the back of this Joycon to remove the backplate. Then we can simply peel off the backplate. There's then a screw to remove the rail from the backplate. Then you can remove the battery. There's then even more screws to remove this middle battery holder section of the Joycon. There's a really short ribbon cable that connects to the button for the trigger. I found it's much easier to remove this first before attempting to remove the middle plastic piece. Then we need to remove the mainboard, joystick, IR sensor, vibration motor, and move them all over to the new shell. The joystick is attached with a small ribbon cable that will need to be removed from the mainboard. Once the ribbon cables and screws are removed, we can then remove the whole mainboard from the shell. Then we need to remove the old buttons, as well as the NFC module responsible for amiibos. With the Joycon fully disassembled, it's now time to do everything in reverse and put all the components into the new shell. We'll start by adding our new colourful buttons to the shell. It's at this point now that we add back in the main board and all the electronics into the Joycon. With the joystick in, we can now screw in the main board. Then re-add the shoulder buttons. I then added the middle piece for the battery holder. Then there's more screws to hold in all the plastic pieces. Then we re-plug in the battery connector. Attach the Joycon rail back to the back case. Then we can close up the Joycons, reattach the back shell, and insert the 4 tri-ring screws. And there we have it, the right Joycon is fully complete. Now for the second Joycon. I'm going to be a lot more brief showing the left Joycon because it's much the same as the right one, and I don't want this video to be excessively long. Once again, we need to remove the 4 tri-wing screws on the Joycon. In my opinion, this Joycon is a lot easier to work with, as it doesn't have the Amiibo NFC chip, and it also does not have the IR sensor, so generally there's just less components to mess around with. The ribbon cable for the trigger in this Joycon is a lot longer, but we're still going to do this the same way to make it a bit easier. Then we'll remove the battery holder piece. And then there's a lot more screws. At this point you should be very careful when removing the joystick. I found this ribbon cable here to be quite fragile, so make sure to take care and open the clip on the little connector before removing it. Then there's some more screws to remove the main board and we can pull it right out. Then it's simply just reassembly, making sure to put our new colourful buttons in before putting the main board down. Here we're adding on those rubber membranes behind the buttons, and this is what's going to make sure we get that nice clicking when we press a button. Then we simply grab the main board and drop it in place into the new shell. Then we screw the main board in again. It's important to note that these screws are different lengths, so you need to be careful and make sure that you put the silver screws back where the silver screws go, and the same with the gold ones. Then we add the plastic battery holder. Then we clip down the trigger again, making sure that the two springs are properly in place. From my experience, this is the part which is easiest to lose. Those little springs fly across the room very quickly, so I think it's nice of Extreme Rate to include some spare ones. And then I'll re-plug in the battery. Screw the side rail back onto the shell. And close it all up again. And for the last time, screw in the 4 tri-wing screws. And there it is, all done. I'm really happy with how this mod turned out. I think it's not only nice having a custom shell, but also knowing it's something that you created yourself. I figured that I've already got the console out, I might as well stick a screen protector on it, so I went with the ones that Extreme Rate included. Their kit includes the protector, some wet and dry cloths, as well as a little sticker to get those final bits of dust off. I really couldn't recommend Extreme Rate's products anymore. I think they're high quality, they come with lots of guides and information, and useful things like extra screws and screwdrivers. If you see anything on their website that you like the look of, keep in mind they don't just have Switch stuff, they have PS5 controller shells, actually the ones I used in my retro PS5 controller video. They have things like Xbox controller shells, and like LED mods for PS5s, and there's just so much cool stuff. Definitely give them a go. You can also use my discount code TMS for 10% off.